I gotta know. I gotta know. There's an old song by Tom Petty called I Gotta Know, and I've gotta know if you can hear me. And so before we roll any further, I want to make sure that we are all good. Yeah, we're going to talk about 5 myths holding you back or holding a lot of people back from raising money for real estate. Last week's show, I talked about one big mindset shift. Thank you, Diana Vargas. You get a prize. Hey, if you can hear me out there, you don't have to tell me. Alex on the YouTube side says you can hear me. Hey, Josh Williams, where are you from? Hey, let me know where you're from, what you do, so I can have a better idea who I'm talking to today. Hey, Wesley Willoughby, thank you for joining. Hey, Alex. Okay. Hey, Brian. Hey, Nate Shields, Dude Real Estate. Douglas Jimenez Jr. Hey, hey. So, if you like what we're doing here at Bigger Pockets, please give me a like, a share, a smiley face, happy face, one of those type of things. Hey, Andy B from Oregon. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what you do. And hey, Teresa, is it Tirsa? Doherty? Hey, I can hear you too. Thank you. I can hear you through your comments. So we're going to talk about 5 exciting, actually not exciting, 5 things holding a lot of people back from raising money for real estate deals. And hey, and if you have questions along the way, it's best if you hold them. But if you're on the YouTube side, I've got one of my fellow bloggers from Bigger Pockets on here, and it's Nate Shields. Thanks, Nate. He is also known as Dude Real Estate from Madison, Wisconsin. So if you have a question, you can't wait, go ahead and ask, and Nate at Dude Real Estate will try to answer your question. He is an amazing real estate investor and coach, and I'm so honored to have him on the show with us today. So thanks, Nate. And that's, like I said, on the YouTube side. So, okay, let's talk about 5 myths that might be holding you back from real estate investing, success as far as raising capital, and then we'll do Q&A for about 20 or 30 minutes. So myth number 1, by the way, I have to thank Julie and I have to thank Annie from Good Egg Investments who helped put together this list. And this is going to be actually coming out as an article on Bigger Pockets within the next 3 or 4 days. So myth number 1 to your capital raising success, you need a big Rolodex of high net worth individuals to raise capital from. Who remembers a Rolodex? If you're a millennial, you probably might not know what a Rolodex is. It was a huge round file of cards in alphabetical order. And when I went through sales training back in the 80s and 90s, they would always talk about expanding your Rolodex. You've got to expand your Rolodex. You've got to have a longer list of people with money who know, like, and trust you, people you can sell whatever to. Okay, that's a myth. So here's the thing. You can start with people you know. As you begin to get investors on a smaller scale, you can leverage your experience, leverage your success to reach out to others outside your network. Keep doing solid, amazing deals, and referrals will start coming your way. And that's one myth that I want to explode right now. You don't need a huge, long list of high net worth individuals in order to raise capital. Myth number 1. Myth number 2, you should wait until you have a deal under contract before you start talking to investors. This should be kind of obvious that this is a bad idea, but it wasn't to me because I had one big fish investor, and I talked about this in my article last week at length, and it was called something like Learn from My Mistakes, Don't in Raising Capital. I'm not sure, something like that. So Wellings Capital, we were trying to get a deal before we got investors, and we had one huge investor, and we thought surely they'll come through. If they've invested 30 or 40 or 50 million dollars at a time in other deals in the U.S., this was an investor group from China, surely they'll give us 3 million if we need it. Huge mistake, huge myth, and I was wrong. Now, it's really important that you begin to develop a list of investors and relationships with investors and start start showing them sample deals long before you have your first deal. Okay, so you should be getting to know them. You should be talking to them. You should be getting their feedback on what they like and don't like in deals and investment size and terms and all that stuff long before you have a deal in front of you. Okay, so don't make the mistake I made. Go ahead and develop a large investor base first. Third myth. Third? Third myth about capital raising. Zach, am I crazy? What? I've never raised any money, so I won't be good at this. Now, I've heard that so many times, and I'll tell you who I heard it from most. Me. Now, I had raised money for a whole bunch of real estate deals and some other entrepreneurial ventures I've been involved in, but I hadn't raised it on a large scale. And because I hadn't raised money on a large scale, I truly believed that I would not be able to raise. I thought I could raise $300,000 for, buying a couple waterfront lots or building a house or two. I thought I could raise $100,000 for house flips because I had done it, but I didn't think I could raise $3 or $4 million for a deal. Okay. It takes a lot of time to get to know how to do this, but you've got to have a mindset shift. Now, if you were going up to somebody and asking them to do something that wasn't good for them, that would be a big mistake. And you would also be known as a shyster, like somebody, and I'm not knocking you guys selling cars, but some used car salesmen, have this reputation. But Dan Sullivan, my coach from Strategic Coach, defines selling as this: getting someone engaged in a future result that's good for them and getting them emotionally commit to take that action to achieve that good future result. Now, Joe Polish, who's also a marketing and sales trainer, says, how many breakthroughs would we have missed in the last 100 years without selling? Martin Luther King Jr. got people intellectually engaged in a future result, and he got people to commit to take action. And I mention him because Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and he did a great job getting people involved in a future result that was good for them, good for the country, good for all of us. And so don't keep this myth in your head that selling is evil, selling is bad. You got to get out of that mindset. You're not asking people for money. You're giving them an opportunity to invest in something they couldn't have access to without you. So try to picture yourself actually presenting them with a platter of gold bars. Now, it wouldn't be free. It's not free to get that platter. There's a little bit of risk, but it is a wonderful opportunity. And if it's not a wonderful opportunity, don't raise money for it. My goodness. Raise money only for things that are amazing and wonderful and will help you and them and everybody else involved. Okay? So myth number 4, you need a fancy schmancy website and logo to get started. Now, I agree that you should have a website, but raising capital is relational. It's all about creating connections with people and educating them on the opportunity. While you need a basic website and logo, the messaging and what you've done, your experience, your team, your track record, and your deal are much, much more important. Folks, have you ever seen Warren Buffett's website? Now, I'm not recommending that you have a 1990s website, but check out Berkshire Hathaway's homepage. Not something that you would expect from one of the largest companies in the world. And you also wouldn't expect that they'd have 28 people in their home office either, would you? But hey, they do it. So myth number 4, you need a fancy website. Number 5 myth, you can go it alone. That's not true. Syndication is a team sport. There are many moving parts, and it can be incredibly difficult to try to do everything yourself. I know somebody who's a Bigger Pockets member who's trying to do everything himself. He outsources some things, but he's falling behind. He's having a really hard time keeping up. He likes the idea of getting all the revenue, but he is having a really hard time. And his investors are not happy because he does not connect with them and communicate with them in the way they expect. Don't try that. Now, my company, we decided quite a while ago that we didn't want to do the operations side. We decided to partner with best-in-class operators, and I highly recommend for most of you, if you want to make the jump into commercial real estate, you find someone to partner with. You either find an asset manager, should find an asset manager, a property management team, an accountant. You should try to narrow your focus of the time you spend on what you're really, really good at. Dan Sullivan calls it your unique ability. And you should try to get to a place where you're outsourcing everything else to either those on your W-2 internal team or your external team. Okay, I promised you 5 myths to explode for raising capital for real estate deals. I'm going to give you a bonus time, number 6. And that was covered a lot in my last week's session, but a lot of you were not there. So I'll just tell you right now that the other myth is that you should go out and chase investors. If you had to chase investors, man, I tell you, I would be insecure too. I would be so bothered if I had to chase investors. It's not the way to get investors. If they feel chased, they're going to run. That's just a fact. If you feel chased by used car salesmen, trust me, if you're chasing investors, they'll run much faster than you do from a used car salesman. So don't try that. You need to create such great deals, such a great track record, such a great team, such a great community that people want to join you, okay? And last week I talked about that for about 28 minutes, okay? So I'm expecting that you will check out my article last week, avoid my mistakes in raising capital, something like that, or last week's session. Now, if this has been helpful, these 5 myths that need to be destroyed for you to raise capital, would you give me a like, a share, a thumbs up, something to let me know that this is helpful for you, and something to make sure I don't get fired by Bigger Pockets, because you never know. That's a little joke. So, okay. So I'm done with my main presentation. It's about 1/4 the hour, and we're going to go to Q&A here. So if you asked a question on Facebook, it's already gone, my friends. I know you think, I know I look like a millennial, but I'm not. And so you probably think, man, if he was only a millennial, he would know how to get his Facebook questions from earlier, but you're wrong, because something about it when you're presenting live doesn't allow you to see any more than the first 4. So I'm going to try to see what I can get, and I really appreciate Dude Real Estate, Nate, over here on the YouTube side, taking care of the questions from YouTube. Okay, so Diana Vargas says, right when I started it, it dropped off. I saw Vermont RN. Diana, can you repeat your question? Just copy and paste it back in. Hey, Drew Mars from Chicago. I'm going to be there in a couple weeks. Good to see you. Arno from South Africa, Cape Town, beautiful area. Tony Balzotti's on here again, and he says, I'm in a position I have enough liquid cash to grow doing solo deals. Great. Do you recommend maxing out how far I can go alone before partnering, or should I just partner now? Tony, that is a great... Thank you for saying that. Tony, that's a great question. Can you do me a favor and give me a little more detail on what type of deals you want to do? And I will really try to answer your question. And I'm hoping to hear back from Diane as well, who I got cut off from when I tried to answer her question. She's a nurse from Vermont. Okay, so Tony, I'll look for a more detailed thing. And if it's much more detailed, I mean, honestly, that's great that you have enough cash. You're in a great position. And if you want to consider jumping on a conference call, I do a conference call on Wednesdays with any of you that I can't get to your questions. And so you can just reach out to me if you want to do the call. It's purely informational. Okay. So if you are on so Tony Balzotti says, right now I'm doing small multifamily 2 to 4 unit. Tony, if you can keep funding 2 to 4 unit deals, I wouldn't partner with anybody. I'm mainly talking about commercial deals, big deals, syndication, etc. So I'd recommend, if you are able to keep doing that you do it. Now, if you're going to consider jumping into larger buildings, like you say here, you may want to consider getting a team around you. In fact, I would highly recommend that. And that would be one of my highest priorities if I was in your shoes. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the YouTube side. And if you've asked a question that Nate, Dude Real Estate Shields, has not been able to answer, I will try to jump in and you should probably copy and paste it back in. Jared says, Paul, your thoughts of business credit cards to get started in real estate investing. You know, Jared, there are some really pretty good deals available on business credit cards. And I know there's a group out there that teaches you to get 18 months with no interest. And I know somebody who's done that. They got like $48,000 on a no interest credit card, and it's no interest for 18 months. And of course, it's horrendous interest after that. You got to be really sure that if you're going to do 1, 2, or 3 flips in that 18 months, that you're going to be done. You got to make sure the market doesn't turn against you. You got to be sure that that you're able to replace that financing with something else or sell the property. If you don't, you might end up with an extremely bad situation on your hands and a very high interest credit card. But yeah, I actually believe it will be okay. M. Benton says, do you recommend setting up a 506c when raising capital? Absolutely. Yeah, Tony, that's great. Absolutely, Mr. Benton, M. Benton, I do that. Depends. What are you raising for? How large? How much are you raising? 506c, by the way, is regulation in the SEC code. That means we can only work with accredited investors, and a lot of syndicators are going that way now. It allows us to advertise, which we don't really do, but you could advertise with a 506c and not have a pre-existing relationship. Okay, thanks, Jared. All right, Curtis Bennett says, hello again. Hey, Curtis. I started flipping houses last year. I've got a decent team already and a private lender funding my single-family flips. I'm wanting to get into some buy and hold properties. How should I approach a deal that works in favor of both myself and my lender if I'm not putting any money in? Right now I'm doing the work on the properties and he is funding them. Let me just read the question again. So it's a private lender. They're funding all of it. You know, if you want to, like if you feel bad, I guess, Curtis, that you're not putting any money in, and I totally see why you might not want to. What you would probably want to do would be to actually give them first preference on the payout. Like, in other words, somehow prefer them in the repayment of the loan before you get paid. And I'm not sure the best way to do that, Curtis, but I mean, here's one way. If you are a money guy and you've got a worker guy, and you're both working on deals, the money guy could set an arbitrary phantom interest rate of, let's say, 8 or 10 or 12% for their capital, okay? Now, the worker guy, is that a good word? The guy doing the work, the gal doing the work, could set an arbitrary hourly rate for and they call it phantom hourly rate, and that's, let's say, $15, $20, or $25 an hour. These are just examples. So when I did this, I think I set an interest rate of 10 and an hourly rate of 20, and both parties keep track of how much cash they put in and when, and they accrue this phantom interest, and then the worker person accrues their phantom dollars per hour. And then at the end, what you do is you sell the property. Let's say you flipped and you've got, let's say, a $30,000 profit. The first thing you do is pay back the capital to the lender, private lender. Second thing you do is you pay the lender their phantom interest rate. So if it was 6 months at 10% interest on $100,000, that would be $5,000 you pay them in profit, okay? $5,000 in profit. And then you take your time. So if you're working for $20 an hour and you work 200 hours on this, that's $4,000. You take that next, okay? So you've got your hours and your interest, and then you split the rest 50-50. Does that make sense? Or you split the rest 60-40 or 40-60 or 70-30, okay? That's how we did it for years. Okay. And so hopefully that helps, Curtis. Something out of that, hopefully, maybe like if there's only a little bit of profit, you prefer the lender first because you were in charge getting the work done, and getting the property sold. I think that'd be a fair thing to do instead of, hey, we both fell short. So you take the majority of the risk since you're doing the work and evaluating the deal. I hope that helps, Curtis. That was a long explanation, but that was kind of important for somebody, I hope. Gabe Gerard says, do you recommend investing in investment groups outside of my area of New York? Yes. If so, where and how could I connect with these investment groups? Gabe, what do you want to invest in? And approximately how much do you want to invest? Because if it's a very small amount, I'd recommend going to some of the crowdfunding sites, which I could help you find one probably. And if it's a large amount, it would be a different answer. Keith Grayson said, hey, Keith, when do you get a hard money loan? When you get a hard money loan, do you pay the fees before you get the loan? Worried about scams? Yeah, often if you get a hard money loan for like $100,000 and there's 3 points, the 3,000 would come right off the top, which means you would only get $97,000 net. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so Gabe Gerard answered my question. He says, I want to invest in large multifamily, $100,000. Yeah, Gabe, it's a really hard time to find multifamily that makes sense. I mean, these multifamily syndicators are scraping out really small returns right now, which means there is a fairly significant chance of loss because their underwriting is so thin. So I would recommend, I'm only telling you what I do. Okay, I'm not telling you what you should do. But what I did is after beating my head against the wall, trying to invest in multifamily for years, and I did some, but after beating my head against the wall continually, I decided to expand into self-storage and mobile home parks. There are a lot of good reasons that self-storage and mobile homes investing have way more upside right now. Now, that's going to change someday. But right now, here's an example. 93% of multifamily properties above 50 units are owned by corporations that have already wrung out most of the value. But about 75% of self-storage are owned by independent operators, and about half of those are mom and pops who don't know how or don't care to wring the value out. 90% of mobile home parks, we believe, are owned by mom and pop operators, and there's tremendous upside to buying one of them. That's just my advice, my friend. I hope that helps, Gabe. If you really do want to invest in multifamily, there are probably places you could look, and there are some good multifamily deals out there. Okay, I hope that helps. Okay, Gabe, that's awesome. Oh, you own a mobile home park. Great. How do you like it? 40 units is, that's an interesting size. That's probably a great size to start out with, and you can be making some good money. I hope you are. Okay. Joseph M. Benton. Okay, Curtis Bennett says that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Okay. If you haven't got your question answered, that's awesome, Gabe. If you haven't got your question answered, now is the time to copy and paste it in, okay? So I'm all ears. Nate Shields and I on the YouTube side at least are all ears. We'd love to answer your questions, and we're going to try to wrap up a little bit early today. It's Friday, and my daughter's here from Redding, California, and this is her last day in town after 2 weeks here, and I'm going to try to have dinner with my daughter and have some time with her. So please ask away. If you've already asked a question, please copy and paste it back in because I have a couple hundred entries here, at least on the YouTube side, it looks like. All right, Joseph Wise says, okay, it looks like Nate Shields is answering your question, so that's awesome. Coach Nikki. Hey, Coach Nikki. What's the best way to go about a subject to property? Oh, man, that's an awesome question. I'm going to get right back to you because I want to spend some time on that. Donovan A says, what should I look for if I want to convert a duplex to a fourplex? Make sure you can get it approved at the city first, number one. Number two, I would get it. It's a big deal. So I would get an architect to, really, do the very, very best possible layout. I hope that helps. Kia Enflu. Hey, Kia. What should I do if I have $10,000 and a 625 credit score with an ambition to purchase a quadplex? Right now, like I keep saying, they're overpriced. And so it'd be probably a great time to keep saving your money and keep waiting for a downturn for a while, or partner with somebody else, Kia. You're probably going to need more like 40, 50, 60,000 down to do that. David says, is this the time to save money for investing when the market drops? I guess I answered that. Yes, absolutely is time to do that, or find a different type of asset class like I mentioned earlier. Bonneville Towing says, I have 67,000 in a 401k. How can I invest somewhere I don't have to pay the penalties? Absolutely. Bonneville Towing, you can link up with Dmitry Fomachenko or other people who have a solo 401k or a self-directed SEP IRA or a self-directed Roth IRA. You can set that up, transfer it from your 401k into the self-directed, and you can invest away in real estate. I hope that helps. Hey, Malachi. I started to say Malachi. That's the Italian pronunciation for Malachi. Thanks for the info, Paul. Go enjoy. Thank you. That's so kind of you. Curtis Bennett says, I have a quick one about commercial rentals. I have the opportunity to pick up a building that was used as an office space before, so it's already set up for business. Are there upsides to renting business space compared to residential? Well, the leases are really longer, Curtis, and so that's one upside. I mean, sometimes you can get people to sign a 5 or 6 or 7 year lease, so hopefully that helps. There are some downsides in commercial. People don't have to have an office to have a business. They have to have a place to live. Beyond that, Curtis, I think you've hit the limit of my knowledge. If anybody else has an answer for Curtis, especially on the Facebook side, please answer away. Rosanna Jackson says, I love the idea of mobile homes. However, I'm not interested in syndication. I am working on a small multifamily. Awesome. Great. Good job. Charles FRUSA says, sadly, the multifamily feels overpriced, but there is great opportunity in single family where you can make a great return. Yeah, I believe there's a lot more single family available right now at a good price. Andy K. Machu says, how would you invest $200,000? What cap rate would be ideal? Like I said, I'm investing money every quarter in real estate, and I'm doing it heavily in self-storage and mobile home parks. And so that's exactly what I would do, because it's exactly what I do, Andy. My focus, if I was you, to be a passive investor, would be spending enormous amount of time getting to know the operator or the syndicator or the fund manager, and make sure that you've got a great connection and trust for them before you go forward. It's a big deal. You're partnering with somebody for 5 or 10 years, and you need to know who it is. Timothy says, hi, looking to do my first deal in single family. Numbers are high in central New Jersey. Should I consider a townhome or condo? I don't know that it's any different from a single family home. I think the numbers are high for both of those, and I don't know either one's better than the other. So Tyler Richards says, planning to buy and hold investment for the first time, want to refi my home and use the equity for this investment. Do you recommend a HELOC? Absolutely recommend a HELOC. There's a website called Replace Your Mortgage. Is that right? ReplaceYourMortgage.com. Yep, and there's another one on YouTube, a channel called VIP Financial Education. They're really, really big on HELOCs, and so am I. That's what I use as my main vehicle to fund real estate and then to repay as soon as and as often as I can. San Diego Gamer says, where do you meet your favorite syndicators? There's a website by Ian Ippolito called Real Estate Crowdfunding Review. And he does more than crowdfunding. He does all kinds of syndicators, and he analyzes them, reviews them. Lots of people get involved reviewing them. That's what I would look there. I'd also go on crowdfunding sites to see who, to analyze some deals there. and find some syndicators. How do you figure out a good ARV for a brrr or flip that aren't similar homes that have sold within the zip code for comparison? I would get with an appraiser or a BPO. I would get a BPO from a real estate agent. Tell a real estate agent that you might, if they give you a lot of help, you will relist the property with them. Of course, you got a plan to do that. And get a broker price opinion from a realtor and let them help you work through that. I'm jumping over to Facebook where someone says, Shelly, hey, Shelly McMillan Stinson. In the process of preparing my first investment property to sell, have not met with my accountant yet. But what do you think is the best way to pay off the HELOC we use to purchase and reduce the capital gains? You're selling a property. What's the best way to pay off the HELOC we use to purchase and reduce? I don't know, Shelly. You can put the money into a deferred sales trust, and then you'll still have 93% or so of it, and you might be able to defer or eliminate capital gains that way. I hope that helps. Tony Belzati says, have you found any lenders that will do a HELOC on an investment property? There are some. I would go to local banks and local credit unions. I would highly recommend you start there and start asking around. That's what I would do. Okay, I've been very rude to my friend here who said that they would like to know something about subject to, and I have lost your question. But anyway, so subject to is when you buy a house and you keep the existing mortgage in place, okay? And it's also known, it could be known as a rent-to-own sandwich, a lease option sandwich, or something like that, depending on how you find a buyer for it. So what you're doing is you're finding somebody who's in trouble on their mortgage and they're about to lose their house. You go in and you offer to buy it, but keep their mortgage in place. You put it into a land trust, which is pretty easy to do. And then you keep their mortgage. Hopefully you will not trigger the due on sale clause, and which means, the mortgage doesn't have to be paid off because there was some funny business. You catch up their mortgage if they're a couple months behind, which is your money to risk. Then what you do is you go in and clean it, paint it, get the owner out. Then the owner still has the mortgage and they have to trust you to continue to pay it. But what do they have to lose because they're about to lose it anyway and have this horrible ding on their credit? So they trust you and you make all the payments you can. In other words, you basically put in the contract, I can't guarantee I'll be able to continue, but my plan is to continue to make your payments. Then you find somebody to rent it to, and you rent it to them for a monthly profit. So you're paying the mortgage, taxes, insurance, etc., and then they're paying you on a rent-to-own basis or just a straight rental. And if you can get $5,000 or $10,000 down from a rent-to-own, you might be able to put money in your pocket at the beginning and then every month after that. And then when you close, you're closed at a future value, like a higher future value than you have today, so one time we did this, we bought a house that had a $140,000 mortgage balance. We had to pay like $8,000 to pay up the mortgage and the attorney's fees and all that. That was painful. So we had $148,000 in it, but $140 was the existing loan. So we only had $8,000 cash in it. Then we turned around and sold it very quickly on a rent-to-own to somebody for $180,000, I think, which is what it was worth. And if he closed like in year 2 or 3, he would get that price, and every year after that, he would have a $5,000 bump. So if he waited 3 or 4 or 5 years to close, it might be $200,000, for example. Well, he did. He moved in. He gave us like $10,000 down, so we paid back our $8,000 and put $2,000 in our pocket. And then we used that for maintenance and repairs, a few repairs. And then we got a monthly profit of like $400 a month for 3 years, and he closed, and we made like $40,000 more at closing. It was awesome. And so highly recommend this strategy. That's a rent-to-own or lease option sandwich I just described, but it's very similar to subject to. Joe White, how are you, Joe? Philadelphia broker, owner of Grow Property Management here. Good to see you. I was in Philadelphia recently and I really enjoyed it. San Diego Gamer says, what do you when you go to a local credit union to get favorable line of credit against a property, you just walk into a branch and try to talk to a loan officer? I would call around first and find the most aggressive one that you can. Coach Nikki says, and yes, walk into a branch if you need to. Coach Nikki says they only owe $47,000. It looks like you're talking to Nate, so I'm going to let you continue that conversation. Charles USA says, I'm curious, what do you recommend for asset protection? A big land trust or LLC, or just do an umbrella insurance? I recommend both. You can put in a land trust, you can put in an LLC, and you can get umbrella insurance on top of that. I think that, and I honestly, I really wonder how well land trusts really work. We know LLCs work because everybody uses them. Land trusts are kind of funny. A lot of attorneys won't even touch them, not because they're bad, but they don't know anything about them. So I don't know. I've used them many, many times, but hard to say. Ray Isco says, pros and cons to using an auction website or acquiring a property that is bank-owned or foreclosure property. Well, Ray, it's possible you won't be able to see the inside, which is going to lower the price for everybody, by the way, which is not a bad thing. You might be able to peek in the windows, or you might be able to get some realtor to take you inside. You might be able to find the old owner and see if they will show you around using their key. But you might not get a chance to do a home inspection. You might not get a chance to see if the HVAC works. You might not have all kinds of, there's all kinds of things. When we buy a foreclosures on the courthouse steps, which we did for years, that was a huge risk. Everything I said was a risk, but it worked out really well because we were paying such a low price. We only got burned a few times. And so honestly, do your very, very best to view the outside, view the roof if you can, see if the HVAC's running, all those type of things, and then you got to take some chances. But we hardly ever found anything that was really, really serious once we got in the houses. So wonderful. Allie says, is it better to be an independent landlord for multifamily units or hire a management agent? I don't know what a management agent is. I assume you mean property manager. I would hire a property manager because if you want to stay in the business long term, you're probably not going to want to deal with toilets, tenants, and trash. You're probably going to want to continue to deal at the property level and then have the property manager do that. Short Bus Life says, any knowledge on UK? No, I really don't. But hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us at 10:40 in the evening. Aim for Greatness says, as a beginner, I've done 4. Hey, Aim for Greatness. I like that name. You've done 4 wholesale deals. I wish to buy rentals. Is it better to use FHA or better to partner to learn fix and flip to rent out? It really depends on how much experience you have. And I would recommend that you try your very best to find somebody, who has experience to partner with. If you don't have that partner, that experience yourself, there's nothing that can replace that. Robert Johnson says, how elaborate of LLC protection do you recommend? I would talk to an attorney about that, but maybe an asset protection attorney. But I would recommend LLC. An out-of-state LLC is what we use, but it's not for protection. There's just certain states like Wyoming and Delaware and Nevada that have better situations. Okay, Kylie Manis, sorry I missed your question. I used the equity in my house I live in to buy another property. Nice. It's sold and rehabbed it. Would you cash out refi the new home and pay back the equity loan or buy another property? I'm not sure I totally understand the question. So cash out, refi the new home and pay back the equity loan or buy another property. I don't know that it matters. I would just, keep your loan to value ratio and your debt coverage ratio reasonable no matter what you do. I don't know if it matters really which one you do, because it seems like both are almost the same thing. But if you can spread your equity, your HELOCs or your mortgages out over 3 properties rather than overburdening one, kind of seems like a good idea. Curtis Bennett says, is there a way to save on the income tax by utilizing an LLC? I don't think so. For example, do you still pay full tax when flipping if you were to deposit profit in a bank account tied to the LLC, then pay yourself I'm going to say a salary from that account? Actually, yes, I was wrong. Yeah. So if you are, Curtis, if you're doing 100% of the work yourself, you should probably just take 100% of the money as W-2 or, 1099 income or Schedule C income, as they say. However, if you're leveraging a lot of other people and the systems and the business, you can justify maybe taking a lower salary. Maybe if you made $100,000 a year in the business, but you only did a part of the work, then you could justify perhaps taking a $40,000 salary and you only pay the double taxes, the FICA, 15.3%, which is Social Security and Medicare times 2. Only on the $40,000 salary, and then the rest would be profit, which would only have federal and state tax, not FICA. Now, some people like FICA. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, no, seriously, the government likes FICA because it's funding the Social Security account and the Medicare coffers. So, local credit union, M. Benton says, I went to a local credit union, got no help. I thought I'd be able to use one of the properties as leverage. Was I foolish? No. My son's gone to a local bank, a local credit union, and he's used his properties as leverage. He does it all the time. And so I think it is a fine thing to do. Okay, Short Bus Life. I didn't know you were 5 hours behind. I thought you were 6. Okay, so it is almost 4:45 Eastern, and we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to answer all your questions we can in a short amount of time. So I'm going to be giving rapid fire answers. If you haven't got an answer yet, please copy and paste your question in, and then we're going to wrap it up. Ray Isco says, I've heard that the best way to get started is to find a deal, go for it, and learn as you go. There's a lot of truth in that, Ray. Is there an order, ducks in a row, that would set me up to be successful, like getting a realtor, property manager, contractor? Yeah, I would, learn all you can about the market first, then hire the perfect realtor next, then bring in a property manager before you close, and hopefully you'll have a contractor lined up. So, yeah, but I mean, there's no substitute for you having a really, really good knowledge of the market. So you should really focus on getting a knowledge of the market first, and then I would do those other things. Okay, who has more questions? You're welcome, Coach Nikki. All right, Jason Liddig says, it better to convert my IRA to self-directed or use a HELOC loan in my primary home for investment property? I would do both. I think those are great options in both cases. So Jason, now if you really, really are tax conscious, you'll probably save more on taxes on the self-directed IRA, but I literally would do both. Andrew Vu, hey Andrew, says, I'm interested in lease options. I'm nervous trying to find buyers that would fit. What's your advice? I'd go to Craigslist and I would say rent to own a beautiful home or lease option for a beautiful home. Credit score in the toilet, no problem. If you've got a nice down payment and you meet certain criteria, please email me at this address. And you can also use realtors to try to find a rent-to-own buyer. Go to a big real estate agency and put the word out there that if anybody has bad credit, they might be able to buy in to your rent-to-own or lease option sandwich. Okay, what else we got here? Matthew Yates. Hey, I hope your day's going well too. That's nice. RH Rag 718. Do you give your property managers Christmas cards every year with a gift? No, but I do things like that for other parties in our organization. You know what? I probably should. Is it too late? Yeah, too late. Atlanta Vine, Life Vine TV says, me and my team are getting into a multifamily of 25 units. For my investors, should we do a fixed rate for rent payout or percentage? We are coming from flipping to multiple. Should we do a fixed rate for rent payout or percentage? I don't think I understand the question, and I probably should, so it's probably my fault. So Atlanta, can you ask that again if we don't run out of time here, which we're just about to do? I would ask Dude Real Estate about that. That's my friend Nate Shields in Madison, Wisconsin, a fellow contributor to Bigger Pockets. And I think he would probably be better to answer that since he's been more involved in that type of thing over the years. So glad you joined us. Preet Veer Singh says, biggest holdup is picking a market and then finding deals within that market. What's the best way to go about picking a market, and what 3 markets would you pick if you had to invest in 2020? It probably depends, Preet Veer, on what type of business you want to do. If you can let us know, how would you find deals within that market? I would do a lot of driving. If you're looking for, it looks like you're already talking to Nate Shields, Dude Real Estate. But I would do a lot of driving for dollars, especially if you're in buy and hold. I see value add cash flow for a family investment office. So Preet Veer, if you want to connect with me and talk more about that, that sounds like something we should probably knock around a little bit. So feel free to reach out. Any of you, feel free to reach out to me at Bigger Pockets, my profile, and you can connect with me and we can talk about getting a call going probably next Wednesday at noon Eastern. I do most Wednesdays, and hopefully that will help more for these questions I can't get to. Keith Rogers says, how profitable is it to start a property management company? Keith, I've heard mixed things. There's a property management for dummies book, but I don't think that's going to help a ton. I think a lot of people get into property management to manage their own properties and then they branch out later, but I don't know that they make a ton of money. It's a huge hassle from what I've heard. I don't mean to discourage you. I actually like hassles because if there are hassles, you can guess that you'll keep some competitors out. So anyway, I don't know if that helps at all. I've never done it, so I shouldn't really say authoritatively. Hard Body Audi. Nice. Would you be so kind to share your thoughts on the best location to invest first time single family long-term investments with $50,000 all in budget? I think I would actually, believe it or not, I would actually recommend you partner with somebody to do the work, and you maybe provide, like, be a private lender, and you could find somebody to help you lend, like somebody to screen the deals, or you can go to a local real estate meetup. Make sure you take every possible precaution, like get the house in your name and all that. So I hope that helps. Can I qualify for an FHA loan if I already have a VA loan, says Rag718. I don't see why not. I don't think there's a problem with that. I've never heard anybody say that you can't, but I would really like to hear from Nate Shields on that, Dude Real Estate. So folks, thank you so much. So excited to be here. I can't believe I get to do this. Bigger Pockets and Zach Gwynn are my friends, and I'm so grateful to them for providing this opportunity. I'm Paul Moore, and if you need to reach out to me, you can do so at my Bigger Pockets profile or at my company website, wellingscapital.com. I am just about to wrap up. I'll take another question or two. Luis Morales says, how do you convince someone to sell or finance the property to you? It's very, very hard, but show them all the benefits. Show them that they can avoid capital gains tax if it's a commercial property at least, and show them that they can kick the can down the road a little bit on taxes. Show them that they were going to get an extra income stream and how much more beneficial it'll be to them to seller finance, show pros and cons of each. But of course, there are lots of pros for them to sell it to you on a seller finance. So MK says, can you do a whole podcast on lease option sandwiches? MK, I will try to do that. That's a great idea. And I think I'm going to be back on here in 2 weeks. And so I will try to make that happen. I'll try to put it in my notes right now. My friends, this has been really great. And again, I can't believe I get to do this. So grateful to all of you. You make this show great. You make this opportunity wonderful. Bigger Pockets, thank you so much. Appreciate you. If this has been beneficial to you, can you just give us a thumbs up, a share, a like? Would love to get that from you, and really, really appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you all again here in the near future. Have a great weekend. Hope to talk to you probably in 2 weeks. Take care.